A couple of weeks ago, in a sense, I was instructed to talk about this one word. And it seems to be the moment to do that. And it's a word that has a lot of strange resonance in the religious and spiritual universe. And the word is accountability. Are we accountable? And who are we accountable to? This is a big issue. And a lot of religions use it to control behaviors, modify behaviors, create a system of right and wrong. A lot of world mind ego formation is about being accountable for what you do, perhaps even for what you think, what you believe. And there seem to be consequences to in accountability, that you pay a price for doing the right thing or the wrong thing. You arrive at a judgment, if you will, something saying right, wrong, good, bad, go forward, go backward. You've arrived, you failed, all of those issues that play in the human mind. And so I've been asked to talk about it. When I say that, I feel very directed internally by forces, if you will, that increasingly guide my day-to-day existence. Have always done so, but I'm more aware of. And in a way, this comes down to what are those forces? Excuse me. What is guiding us? What is there behind all this human experience? And you all have answers to that. You all have your own answers, and your answers are maybe solid, maybe in shifting mode, maybe pretty much absent in some way. But I can only tell you my version of this, and please don't take it as the given truth, because I don't know what the given truth is. But those of you who remember my story, it goes back to an initiatory moment, which I believe all of our spiritual lives go back to. Something, pain, suffering, awareness, clarity. In my case, stupidly, or perhaps not stupidly, a psychotropic drug called LSD took me on this vast journey that completely obliterated everything I knew to be true about the human experience. Put it in a context that was so big, so vast, that there was no accounting for it in my mind. It had a little bit to do with heaven and hell, God and devil, things like that. It had a Sunday school quality because I didn't have much tutoring in the larger mystery of the universe. The journey was millions of years long, or so it appeared to be, because there was no time or space. It ended in a place of complete quiescence after many periods of suffering, if you will. The quiescence was absolute. There was nothing else. And then, as you may remember, I felt impregnated in some way. Something entered me. I split into halves and quarters and eighths and sixteenths and went on and on and on. And I recreated or redeveloped the physical material universe itself. And when I came back into solid form and was roaring with laughter, I said, why am I back? And this voice said to me, tell people what you saw. I didn't know what I saw. And so I began this hitchhiking trip ultimately around the world looking for teachers in Eastern philosophies, because the little bit I knew from the Bhagavad Gita and the Buddhist teachings and the Tibetan Book of the Dead was there's something else going on here, and there is a larger universe to which we are accountable. And I felt that so powerfully, that life is not just haphazard, happenstance, and you go through it and it's over and it's done. It may be that, and if it is, then turn this off. But it may not be that. It may be something so large, so incomprehensible to us, and yet it seems to offer us this body-mind construct and a universe in which to place that, in which our behaviors affect time and space, affect our being, and affect the being of others. And we all know from the narratives and the stories of ourself and other people that who you are and how you behave has effect on others and on that world you have found yourself in, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. When it's for the worse, there is a certain sense of embarrassment, dread, sadness, anger, fear, hostility to yourself or to others. Doing wrong in the world provokes a certain kind of internal suffering. Doing good in the world, being kind, careful, sharing, loving of others, also has a response, which is usually somewhat open, relaxed, available, non-judgmental, easy. There's something about it that's very attractive. Finding that space is sometimes very simple and sometimes elusive. I will break them down into light and dark, if you will. You can enter darkness, which has weighty, scary, negative, stressful feelings, and you can open to the possibility of light, which has uplifting, kind, loving, joyful experience. You live your life in an amalgamation of these experiences, and you call them you, yourself, or your ego. Your ego is the owner of your behaviors, of the collective experience of your behavioral life. And usually there's some blend of good things you do, bad things you do, conscious, unconscious, life lived in a way with not too much sense of accountability. You just do it. And you do it with a certain kind of fascination with, and often a total compulsion to believe that the world is outside, that everything is outside of you. Yes, there are feelings. Yes, there are thoughts, things like that, a certain internal space that feels and thinks and knows, but mostly it's all about what's around you. The initiatory moment, whenever it comes, often through pain, suffering, psychedelics, I don't know, whatever it is, that thrusts you into the inside and shows you that there is a world inside you as big as, and in fact, much bigger than the world outside you. That your whole mind-body construct, your ego life, is suddenly repositioned. It sees life through a different lens. It's no longer about you. This outer awareness becomes much more important than your own particular knowledge base. Starting to pay attention to that vastness inside you becomes something that is not automatic. Just because you witness it once doesn't mean it's there for the rest of your life. It can be, but mostly the pull of the outer is so strong that you forget. And you just go back into the dance of light and dark, happy, sad, being good, being bad, going to the movies, going out to dinner, watching TV, whatever. But if you've been initiated deeply enough, chances are something, in my case, it was finding a teacher named Rudy who began to direct me to practice going into that bigger space, reminding me there was value in experiencing the universal, not just the particular. And as I did that as a practice, and he said it's a practice and it's work and it's a daily work, I got to develop a deeper and deeper entry point into the self itself, to the universe. And it began to inform my worldly adventures outside me. And sometimes I obeyed it, listened to it, paid attention to it. Sometimes I didn't. Often I had what I've described in recent teachings as just pure reactive reality to whatever was going on around me, annoyances, angers, hostilities to things I didn't like, actions that were not necessarily loving or kind. And I realized they had real power in the world and they shut me down. They made it harder to go inside because I was so caught in the outer dynamic of the ego striving self. And I would have to really work and ask for help to surrender, to go back into the deeper part of me that knew me, that seemed to care about me, and seemed to direct me as deeply as it could into interacting with the world and even maybe more importantly, witnessing the world. It seemed to want me to bear witness to what it was, or let's leave it present tense, to what it is. And I understood that the biggest part of my expansion in this initiatory universe was to become a better witness and a better servant, if you will, of the what is. Show up, do to it, with it, as best you can, following the directive of this higher guidance. It is a powerful directive. It is infinite in its awareness. It is so much bigger than this little ego character that we are. This little ego character that we are, left unconscious and to its own design, is going to suffer beyond belief. It suffers in ignorance, it suffers in desire, it suffers in lack of fulfillment or even getting what it wants and knowing it's going to lose it. It suffers because it is impermanent. It's only going to be around for a short while, and then it's going to go out in a probably not happy and somewhat perhaps painful way. And having put all of your attention on that dark little thing causes so much suffering during the lifetime you have that if you don't know about the inner universe that is witnessing this, you get caught in it. And you get caught in the suffering that already is established early on. And you want ways not to suffer. And what do you look for? Ice cream, candy, love, sex, alcohol, television, movies, anything to give you pleasure in the outer. Some of these dull you down and make you and deaden you to your ego self without opening you to your universal self. So you're already living a life in which you are building the coffin of your future existence. The initiatory moment tells you there's another way, there's another path. And one of the real failings of Western society is it doesn't talk about it at all. The closest it comes to it is prayer, asking for help and guidance. That's real and it's good, but it's very future directed. Prayer is to help you now, but to be a good person is because you want to have somehow get into heaven at the end. There's some truth to that. If you can get guidance now and listen to it and follow it out, you will begin to pay attention to the kindness and the goodness of your soul, and you will begin to live a life of letting go of your darkness, letting go of your fear, letting go of your anger, letting go of your need to punish and be hostile, and you will find a doorway, perhaps at the end of your life, into this place where they account for your life and find that you had a good life. Your ego mind was in service of something higher. You may find leaving this world that you were a terrible person. You did terrible things. You caused great grief. I would imagine from my LSD experience and from 50 years of meditation that that moment of departing this world may in fact hold you into account. If you have not found any way to prepare for that, that's a very difficult moment. And again, a moment that comes at you in most ways as a blindsided experience. Often you back into the death of your own ego. You don't go in forward. And you find yourself in, well, there's a lot of ways of imagining what that may be. Heaven, hell, bardo existence, chaos. It might just be completely beautiful light, and it may be nothingness at all, and none of what I'm saying matters. That's really possible. My experience is life, if you have been initiated into it, is an opportunity to open in a deep and profound way to the vastness of being. It is a kind of miraculous, grace-filled awareness. And what it demands of you is acceptance, allowing, surrender, simplicity, so that it can inform and guide you in your ego-minded experience and allow your larger self to serve the world of ego-minded beings and help, if you will, initiate, guide, or help them in some way on their journey. Kind of a bodhisattva-like universe where you come back from your larger awareness as a servant of kindness and goodness and love and beauty for people around you. Accountability at the end of that life is probably not as dramatic as it would be in an unconscious life, full of drama and full of mistakes and full of causing people harm and difficulty, and your own self having made yourself deadened to the world with drugs and alcohol and mindless distractions. When you find yourself in a state of surrender to the what is, you become profoundly, profoundly grateful. Grace enters the picture, and you try as best you can to serve it as best you can. But now, and I've discussed this a little bit in the last month or so, there's another experience that seems to be happening for me, and recently for a number of other spiritually evolved people who have called me, people who describe themselves as awakened, who are suffering dramatically. And I have as well been suffering dramatically in moments of wave action, if you will, of profound meaninglessness, purposelessness, and despair, the absolute loss of all reality as we know it. It is, everything is up for grabs at that moment. It is a complete demolishment of ego-minded self. It doesn't always last that long, although it can. But what I have discovered and what I am discovering in dialoguing with these other spiritual beings is it is taking away the final, I don't know about final, but very, very distant barriers of ego mind, the part that's afraid, the part that's worried, the part that still doesn't want to be impermanent, the part that doesn't want to die, the part that doesn't yet fully believe or accept. Whatever that vastness is, you will be presented with a glimpse into the dark absence of all things. And I've talked about it a lot in recent weeks because it's such a powerful, ongoing experience. I've now discovered that it can come as cataclysmic and it can come in little wispy waves. There's one reaction, however, that's wanted. And I tell you this because if it ever begins to happen to you, someone will have said it to you. You have to go, aso. You have to accept the total despair and meaninglessness and purposelessness of all things. You have to go, aso. And in the same way, when that period passes, as it often does, in my case now, it always does, it passes, and what comes back is such luminous joy and love and gratitude and magic. And the instinct of all of us is for the ego mind to grab hold of that and go, thank you, and feel really grateful for the reintroduction of the brilliance and luminous quality of being alive. But that's a danger too. Because the minute you grab hold of that, the other side has power as well, on equal measure, light and dark. What you have to do when that incredible joy of being returns is go, aso, aso. It's the balance of absolute acceptance of life at its worst and at its best, and not being caught, because the thing that gets caught is your ego mind, and it's going to have to be broken down into nothingness at some point. And when it is, I'll talk about that if I get there. I will tell you, Blanche and I were talking this morning about her mother, who was very ego-minded and full of anger and betrayals and all these things that happened in her life. And in her dementia, they all washed away. And she became simple, warm, gracious, loving, accepting. And as I've described in many, many talks, her last non-words to me, because she couldn't speak, but they were in her hospital bed hours before she died, she went, she did not have a spiritual life. She did not practice the way we're doing. She just lived. And that may be really what many of us can face, that somehow just living a life is enough. And at some point in the end, for those who experienced at least that dementia and Alzheimer's or whatever else, that stuff gets washed away and there's a very simple being left. Unfortunately, I've known Alzheimer's patients who've gotten angry and hostile, and it's different. So I don't know the rules. I don't know if there are rules, but I will tell you the experience that I am going through allows me to feel that we are deeply accountable for our lives, that we can find a way to respond to that accountability while we're alive by serving the forces of underlying what appears to me kindness and goodness and love in the world, and then watching that disappear and not reacting to that. Understanding that the universe is massive beyond belief, incomprehensible to our minds and brains, and yet our job is to go for this. Those of you who are listening to this talk, live or on tape, you are drawn to this for some reason. I don't know what that is, other than it's something to do with These words are instructive. You can engage them or not engage them. Believe me or not believe me. I don't even know exactly what I know or believe other than show up, witness the incredible massiveness of the universe itself and the tiny little mechanism of Bruce that is aware of it. And that watching that little mechanism of Bruce getting broken down into nothing. And it can handle certain amounts of that breaking down and going like it's freeing me and it's liberating me and it feels good and I'm awakening and all of that spiritual stuff. But then it's like biological. It's like it's painful. It's massive. It's really taking me apart. Yes, that's the bargain. Yes, that's what it will do. Yes, we have to go yes to that. And as we go yes to that, not that you have to, but it will ultimately, I believe, require that, it will liberate you from this separateness that you have only had for a short time. That separateness has created a mind and body that is a witness to this exquisitely infinite, complex, beyond understanding reality. And it serves its purpose for what appears to be a short something we call time, and then it's gone. The promise of most spiritual practices is that when you let go of the ego mind, that universal is still there. If I had to vote on that, I would say, yes, that's true. If I thought it held me accountable and pushed me through to potentially other lives to fix and make better the things that weren't done right before, as a screenwriter, that's a good story. It's a good narrative. I don't know where the truth lies, but I do know this. Every day of my life is a kind of practice. Every day is expansive. Every day is filled with moments of unbelievable wonder, and then moments or flashes of it has no meaning, it has no purpose, it has no ground of being at all. There's no way to bring those together other than to go, it's all true. It's all not true. It doesn't matter. But I will tell you, one way or another, you are on that journey. You wouldn't be listening to this talk if you were not on that journey. We are here doing this. It's hard. It's not an easy path, but it is a path to enlightenment. It is a path to awakening. It is a path to something that is bigger than any one of us individually, but is part of us collectively. And it is at moments and times exquisite beyond all understanding and fearsome beyond all understanding. We are that very thing, and there's no way to understand it, but to go, okay, or yes. So I don't know what I'm offering you. I call it accountability, meaning during this journey, or maybe every death that you go through, they'll say, well, C+ life, A minus life, B minus life. I don't know, but I do know that there is, when I serve, when I am told to do something, and I get those directives, I call, that inner GPS, I'm told daily, moment to moment, what to do. If I don't do it, there's a little click inside that goes, oh, and I go, okay. And I readjust. I go, okay. And I know that it wants me to be its voice. It wants me to tell the world what I saw, even as now what I'm seeing, what I'm learning, what I'm knowing. It does not give me any exaltation whatsoever. If anything, it wipes away all of that, and it just makes me a voice. And Blanche and I were talking this morning at breakfast about, God, if you guys could see me all day long where I'm complaining about this pain, and this thing is hurting, and that thing is hurting, you would go, why would I listen to Bruce about anything? And I get it. I cannot be anything but human. On the other hand, when I am told to sit down in front of you and make this talk, something flows that is not Bruce, that is not in pain. I mean, there is pain, but like it doesn't matter. It just says, share this, share it, be accountable, make people aware, let them be accountable. That's what we're here for. And we can do it. And there is an upside. And that upside is, as it erases our separateness, we get to touch the ineffable, infinite reality of being without any interpretive thing at all. We might even get beyond fear. We may even get beyond trying to own it. We just are it. That's where we're headed. If you want to go there, or even if you don't, that's where you're headed. If you want it, just say yes, go so, take it as it comes. Be kind to the others in your lives. Be kind to yourself. Learn to love. Learn to accept. Be open, be available, and watch this thing unfold. It is at the very core of why we're alive and why we have come into being. This life is an enormous gift. I do not understand it, but I know it is, it doesn't come out of nothing. It doesn't just happen by mistake. It's not just like grab bag of molecules. This thing is beyond our understanding, and it cares about us, and I believe it loves us, and it's going to teach us. And we are going to learn how to witness what it is, we are, what is, and become that which we already are experiencing. So that's my talk. You know, I keep wanting to be one of those teachers who promises infinite bliss. I really want to be that. If I ever arrive at that as a finality, I will share that. But right now, it's work, it's practice, it's consciousness, it's awareness, it's consistency, it's service, it's being good, it's being kind, it's putting other before self. That's what it is. And you're accountable for that in my scheme of things. Maybe not in the ultimate scheme of things, but as long as we are, perform as nobly as you can this journey of being a human and see where it goes. It's extraordinary, it's remarkable, it's beyond understanding. Okay, enough said. Questions? Any questions about any of this thing? I don't know what to say. I mean, I can answer questions, but I do know. It's the answers have to come ultimately from you. That the answers that come from me and through me may be an easier approach, but ultimately you have to find them. That's your job. They come through. The very thing that's speaking through me is already in place in you. It's as big in you, it's as wise in you, it's as noble, it's as beautiful as anything you may think is coming through me. Trust me, you're not 1 millimeter less in terms of knowledge and wisdom and insight and capacity than I am or any other human being. It's just, have you committed? Have you committed to this thing? Again, we're living in a society that doesn't even reference it. It's hard to commit to it. There's nothing that references it. You get this every Sunday morning or every other Sunday morning. That's it, unless you do the work. If you do the work, you get it every day. If you go really deeply, you'll get it all the time. And if you want, you'll become this source of grace that just pours through the world. It doesn't have to touch everybody. It will just touch the people who come near you that you are supposed to be touching. That's all it does. It's not about world teaching. It's about teaching what is in front of you. So I'm now repeating myself way too much. I don't see any hands going up, so I'm going to say thank you, guys. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm getting very ready to do classes in person again. So it's possible even in 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, we'll gather here for those of you who want to do that. I haven't figured out how to handle the West Coast classes or any of that. I haven't figured out whether I can do Zoom and live classes simultaneously. I don't have it worked out. But one way or the other, if enough of you want to have personal classes and aren't afraid of gathering in an interior space, we'll do it. It's possible we could do it outside, but I don't have a perfect space for that yet. But we'll work it through. But I do know I want to see you. I want to hug you. I want to be in touch, literally in touch with you, and make this more tangible even than it is. So I'll let you know. I'll be thinking about it, and you'll hear soon. Thank you for coming today. Have a wonderful couple of weeks. Be well, enjoy yourselves, and we'll talk soon.